So I'm from a very small town in the middle of England, and I first travelled the world watching David Attenborough documentaries, and so aerial imagery of animals is one of my earliest memories. I did a degree in environmental science. I started working here in Australia on some very complex programs, and I looked at ways to try and make that safer and get the data better, and drones were an obvious answer for me at the time. I think the UAV technology is not actually really replacing any of the traditional methodology completely, but what it is filling the gap where the traditional methodology can't reach. So for example, in a post-cyclone situation, it takes a while to get fuel and pilots and aircraft out to an island that's been affected in the middle of the Pacific, whereas these drones can be on standby and use literally a litre of fuel rather than having to fuel a whole plane. You can actually get out and get data faster without having to have human beings in the air. So the ability of being able to fly literally hundreds of kilometres offshore without having to put people in small planes and without having to put people on the ground means that you're not only sampling without disturbing that natural environment, you're also not putting human beings at risk. I'm currently operating across every single continent, working with people from government, working with people from environmental protection agencies, working with oil and gas companies and resource companies, working with schools and universities. So it's a very diverse set of projects that we're looking at leading from Queensland. So drones are actually going to be involved in pretty much every part of our economy in the next few years. Some of the most interesting projects for me are ones where we are going to be saving lives, and we're looking at how we can integrate what we know now here in Australia across building resilience in the Pacific and in also Australian communities that can be affected by cyclones and severe weather events. I think it's quite difficult sometimes when people are so specialist, you also accidentally become siloed, and I think we need initiatives like this to actually bring us out of our narrow focus and actually put us back around the table and refresh those ideas and actually find new ways of doing things. The whole reason we started flying long-range UAVs for environmental monitoring was actually to cover about 10 different scientific disciplines, to do that safer and to get that data better. So diversity of thought and diversity of thought leadership was one of the things that sparked our whole desire to look at using drones for environmental monitoring and engineering projects. Talking with a number of industry leaders across Queensland, they're already looking at ways to retrain their existing staff. So as we go to have fewer people in the field, what else can they do? And training people into how to fly drones and actually analyse the data from these new methods of data collection is a whole new enterprise for retaining and retraining and building new skills amongst your existing workforce. Sometimes you'll find industry leading and sometimes you'll find it lagging. And I think in a growing economy, that's when industry is leading. And it's leading because the academics are involved and are behind those ideas. So for me, having academic industry partnerships is absolutely key to economic success. I think that here in Queensland our economy is based on resources, manufacturing and education, and this is where drones actually fits into all three of those things and can build into all three of those things. Queensland has some of the brightest minds on the planet right now. The universities here are class one, and the fact we've got resource industry and agriculture and a large coastline, for me there's a lot there to play with in terms of science and in terms of applications of innovation. You can't find what we've got here in Queensland pretty much anywhere else in the world. There's nowhere quite like it. Being a disruptive thinker or being an innovator can be quite lonely, and I guess one of the pieces of advice that I would give to people is if you're going to start down the path of innovation or thought leadership or trying to do things differently, you have to be in there for the long haul. If you have a 3-year plan, give it 3 years. If you have a 2-year plan, don't stop after 6 months. You'll find whenever you're trying to change stuff up, the first thing you'll do is hit a brick wall. So it takes some tenacity. You've got to find that reason why you thought this was a good idea in the first place. Get your sponsors, get your people to help you hone your business point of view and get your strategy right, and then full bore until you get to where you wanted to get to.